Hold on. Why is this being bizarre? All right, there we go. Hi, folks. Dave, the Honest Audiophile. We have our technical issues hopefully all fixed here. I had to make a quick adjustment on some settings. Sorry about that. My camera was situated so that it was in the wrong position. So we will get all of this all sorted out quickly on the fly. Hopefully you all can hear me just fine. If you can, give a thumbs up in the video or in the chat. If you can't hear me, thumbs down. But I believe everything's good to go, and we're going to get the show on the road, so to speak. So, welcome to Thursday Night Chat. This is a just question and answer time for just question and answers for you guys, whatever you want to talk about, audio related, and hopefully y'all had a good Thursday, and one more day of work for the majority. So I know that it's going to be awkward. Normally I don't do live streams on Thursdays. Don't normally do them during the week, so it's going to be difficult in the morning because my brain's already going, oh, tomorrow's Saturday. 'Cause, it's either a Friday night or a Saturday that I do a live stream. So that's going to be a little awkward to adjust, but looks like everything's good to go sound wise. So thank you for everybody swinging by. And I know it's a little early for some and a little late for others. And then it's just the perfect time, being 7 p.m. for a few as well. So thank you for joining no matter what time of day it is for you all. I greatly appreciate you taking some time. And let's see here. The Spiral and Sparky, thank you very much for coming by. And greetings. And any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the chat. Just a couple of quick announcements. Today I did release something that has been in the works for quite a while, and that is the How to Listen Master Guide. It is a very large document that is out on Google Docs. There is a link on the website. I also put a link on YouTube community page that puts it in there. There's 13 chapters, and it's not a little quick 5-minute read. It is a longer read. So if you've had time to browse it over, cool. Like to hear your thoughts. If you haven't had time yet, give it a try. See what you think, and drop some thoughts, and do greatly appreciate it. Just to quickly to talk about it a little bit, the chapters that are in How to Listen is what is critical listening, building a neutral and natural playback chain, how to compare gear the honest audiophile way, how to build a reference playlist, how to choose reference gear, maintaining a reference chain over time, how to identify synergy between components, understanding the 3 kilohertz region and psychoacoustics, evaluating bass, mids, treble, staging, and imaging, how to listen for details, resolution, tone, and timbre, how to listen for tone and timbre across genres, how to evaluate dynamics and transients, and how to identify a trustworthy reviewer. That is all inside the How to Listen Master Guide. So if you are interested in that or curious about various things, take a look at that document. It's listed at the top of the chat as well. Plus, as mentioned, YouTube communities, and also on the website. And if you want to discuss any of that tonight, put a question out. Let's see. Review schedule. So we have a poll that's going to be coming out later in the week, but here are the things currently right now that we have in for review. We might as well get this out there right now. If Paul's watching, it's already been done. All right, so Moondrop Land 2, the pop-in reference. Both versions are in for review. We have the KB Ear Tourbillon Pro, Kiwi Ears Orchestra 2, 7 Hertz Critical Diablo and Divine, the Tipsy M1, M3, and M5. The M5 has just arrived. We also have the VEUA Gwanzi, that is a Venture Electronics unabridged Gwanzi. And then you have the Tantrum Soda, the Juzzier Harrier, the Dunu DN142 and DN242. We also have an Aune AC55, Adams Audio H200, Fio Jade Audio JT3, the Moondrop Old Fashioned, the Roselsa Rose Technics Distant Mountain 10th Anniversary, the NF Acous NH20, and the Meze 99 Classic V2, the Fio Warmer R2R, the Fio DM15 R2R, and the Softears SO1, and the Fosse Audio DS3 are all in for review. So quite a bit of things coming in to the channel as of late, and we'll get to those reviews as quickly as possible. As mentioned, we do have a poll that'll be coming out. I'm going to try to do polls Sundays to kind of see, hey, what do you guys want to see next on the channel as far as reviews? So be on the lookout for that dropping. All right, back to some comments here. Let's see. Dragnet says, Happy New Year. Thank you very much, Dragnet. It is 5 p.m. in Alberta, Canada. 5 p.m., so you're not too far behind, only a couple hours. And it's probably pretty chilly up there in Alberta. It's chilly here in Indiana. I can't imagine what it'd be out there. Let's see here. Thank you very much, Dragnet, for the gift. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. And I hope that you're doing better health-wise, and been thinking about you and keeping it in the prayers. All right, so let's see. Fred also says, good evening. Thank you very much. Sorry, Fred, I have a glare coming from one of my lights that's like blinding me, making it hard to read my screen. I do apologize for that. It's OC here, okay. All right, let's see. CMC Gill says, started looking through your master guide. Love how it's looking. Very well organized and understandable. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate the feedback, and we'll keep that updated. Over time, it may have to be adjusted slightly depending on anything that changes. And of course, anything that gets added in. And I'll keep you all updated if there's anything like that comes through. Thank you very much for the feedback. Much appreciated. All right, so while you're all thinking about questions, I have a question for you. What's one thing that you struggle with when evaluating new gear? And, is it tone, timbre, staging, hearing details, resolution, fatigue, something like that? Is there something in particular that you really have a tough time always determining? And how have you been able to maybe learn a technique or a process in order to be able to to learn that, and to figure it out? And then another one is, what's the hardest part of critical listening for you? Is it the hearing differences, describing them, trusting your impressions, trusting what you're hearing, not truly understanding what you're hearing? What's all that to you? And the reason why I'm asking these questions is they're discussed in the How to Listen Master Guide, and so you can always go back to that. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. What is Muncie like in summer? I don't know what that means. If you care to clarify that. Some other questions that I've kind of been thinking about over the last week or so is, what's the first track that you play when testing new headphones, IEMs, gear? For me, I really don't have a go-to song. I kind of I have my reference tracks and I just kind of hit random and whichever one pops up. There are a couple songs that kind of stand out though. And I guess you could maybe say that they're kind of my go-tos. And one of them would be Houston Person, You Are My Sunshine. I really find that one to bring out natural tone and timbre. Um, and then another one that I listen to quite a bit is um, Michael Bublé, When I Fall in Love, and Sign of A, When We've Just Begun. Those are kind of probably the three songs that I kind of go to first, I guess, but oftentimes I'll just hit random on my reference tracks and just kind of listen. Let's see. Thank you very much, Guillermo. I always mess up your name. But anyways, Happy New Year. Now I have some reading to do this weekend. Let's keep the channel growing. Absolutely. Yeah, if it will take a little bit of time to read. I would say probably if you're going to read it straight through, depending on how fast of a reader you are, it'll probably be 20-minute read, 25, maybe 30 minutes. If you take your time and really process it, that could take a lot longer than that. It is 13 chapters. And if you go by Google Docs pages with page breaks and everything in it, it's about 105 pages, including the appendix and all that. So it's a fairly big document. It's not something that was just instantaneously written. It took some time. And thank you very much again for the gift. I do greatly appreciate it. Okay, so Dragnet says, I'm missing frequencies because I lost hearing in my left ear, so balance is an issue. That would definitely hamper some experiences. So I'm curious, do you still have hearing in the left ear? It's just diminished more than your right ear, so it kind of throws off. That would be difficult to compensate for. I would imagine that your right ear, it would be kind of like anything else, that physically, like if your left eye is weaker than your right eye does the majority of the work. Is that kind of the way it is with ears? Does it overcompensate on the right side? That would definitely be a challenge. Let's see, Fred. It seems like there's a trend towards equipment that are coloring the music less on the technicals. Why do you think that is? That's an interesting thing. So there is a little bit of a trend lately, it does seem, to try to go to a neutral presentation, a little bit more analytical. But the issue with that is they're chasing numbers and they're chasing specs. They're not necessarily chasing true neutral. And so I think it's kind of the trend that they're trying to go to meta, that meta tuning that that a lot of people say is neutral. But unfortunately, they're missing the mark of what actually brings it all together, and that's naturalism and realism. They're kind of forgetting about that part of it, and they're just chasing the spec to go to neutral. And so it kind of makes those technical parts kind of stand out a little bit more, a little less, as you say, colored. Let's see. That's clarified his comment about Muncie. Said, my cousin lived in Indiana and she told me to avoid Muncie in the summer, but never said why. Honestly, I don't know. Muncie is pretty far away from where I am, and I've only been there a couple of times. So I know that there's a state university there for football, which isn't very good, Ball State. But other than that, I really don't know anything about Muncie. Um, Dragnet says, yeah. Um, all right. So Fred says it feel warmer. So the warmer is sitting back here. I haven't had a whole lot of time listening to it. Now that's different than what I explained. That one is going to a more musical presentation, and so that's the opposite way. And to me, that's taking it a little bit too far. Now, I don't have an issue with things being musical. I like that presentation, but at times it can be a little much. So you can go from one extreme, which is the cold, sterile side of things, in which they're removing the naturalism and realism, to the point where they're kind of adding a little too much, and they're making it a little bit too, what you would say, musical or colored, and it loses the neutral side of things. And it one extreme to the other extreme, and there's not really that happy medium that a lot of are searching, which is a true neutral. Hopefully that answers your question, but there definitely is a tendency to going that way. Um, Spiral. I think chasing graphs has really hurt has hurt home audio development. A similar phenomenon has pulled much of the fun out of the camera design world as well. Interesting. I'm not very photographic. You probably have noticed that if you follow my channel. I am not the greatest at taking thumbnails or pictures. And I have noticed though, just by kind of looking at things, viewing, articles and following things online, that pictures are becoming a little bit more about the being more, I guess, more vivid, more, eye catching, more popping versus being more natural and accurate in this representation. You even notice that in phone reproduction, in phone cameras, which is what I use, ironically, for my camera for YouTube. But there is differences between them. Some of them over process, some of them really process. Some of them get them pretty natural, and you have to really tweak things a lot to get it to look somewhat correct. And so I can understand where you're going from there. And it definitely, there is that kind of knee jerk reaction, it seems like, that has, you've chased the specs, you've chased the number, and then people are like, but this doesn't sound quite natural. And so they overreact. And now they're going a little bit on the warmer side, a little bit more on the thicker, lush, ooey gooey side, and they're kind of like, no, that's not it either. Let's get back to the normal, uncolorized, natural, neutral, and let everything speak for itself and come together in synergy. Let's see. Guy says, I imagine it has to be read with alongside my gear, your music playlist, and mine. Yeah, to a degree. I do have listed in my how to listen. There are songs and tracks. I do not have links to the songs, so you would have to look them up on whatever, if you use a streaming service or if you have it in your library, that song. And I also explain, what you're looking for at different times. And then obviously you would, compare it to what my findings are and what my explanations are to your reactions, and to what you find, and make your own opinion. I'm not here to tell you how it's done. It's how I do it. And I'm trying to show you, how to do it and explain what I'm hearing, and what you should be looking for. Fred, you're welcome. Um, I understand about going to Muncie. I mean, there's not really, I, if you live there, I guess, if you need to go there for a job, but if you're going to visit Indiana, I, there's better places to go, in my opinion. But it's just a college town. Let's see. Thank you, Dragnet. He just wants to say that I have an awesome setup. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. This is, it took a while. Over the Christmas break, took some time, so I appreciate it. And I do greatly appreciate that. Oh, in case you're wondering, this is a, no, this is not sponsored. This is, okay, just gotta make that clear. This is not sponsored. This is a cold brew from Starbucks. It has some vanilla and espresso in it. So that's all. All right. Let's see. Sparky asks, have you listened to the Tungsten from Mod House? Yes, actually, I heard it at Oxpona a long time ago. I guess that was 2 Oxponas ago. Haven't heard it since, and it was a interesting headphone. I can't really give much. I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember that it was, impressive. It was differently built than I expected for sure. It didn't feel as premium as I thought it would for its price point. It's a little bit on the heavy side, if I remember correctly. And I thought it was good, sounding. Nothing like stands out as far as I didn't like it. I don't remember what amplifier it was on or anything like that. It'd be interesting to get in for review, but I haven't been offered one. Did it make enough of an impression that it's on my wish list to purchase? No. All right, let's see. Let's see. Fred says, I think there are two distinct groups in this hobby. A lot of reviewers tend to be enamored with the construction and creation of the IEMs, and there's others who just care about the sound. What do you think? Yeah, there is I think there's several different parties within the IEMs, headphones, and all of that. You definitely have the ones that chase the specs. They care about the driver, they care about the design, all the intricate inside stuff. They care about, how the tips make a difference, how cables make a difference, and how gear. They chase like the technical side of it. Then you have ones that truly, really just care about how does it perform. You could put 50,000 different drivers in this thing, and if it sounds good, cool. I really don't care. And then you have the other ones who care about the specs, but also care about the performance and care about the tuning itself. And the tuning takes the precedent over it, but everything else kind of matters as well. And I kind of think that's kind of the three, parties in there. There might be some others, but then you have all the other things that add in. You have genres of music that they care for. You have, some people are really care about certain brands. Some care about budgets. Some care about this. Some there. So there's a lot of other things in there. There's so many variables that people care about and don't care about. So it's really, really difficult to, like say, there's this party and this party. There's several different ways of thinking for sure in the audio world. Let's see, Dragnet. But the Buffalo Bills are sponsored though. Why, hey, if they want to support the channel, I'd be all for it. For sure. Let's see. Spargassi, it's hard to get too excited for planars, in my opinion. So for me, it's difficult to get excited about any driver, to be honest. I'm looking more for the performance and how it sounds than I am the actual driver technology itself. And as mentioned in the how to listen, each driver has, pros and cons. Each one has strengths and weaknesses. And that's why I don't put particular weight into this type of driver itself. I'm looking at it more as, does it sound good? Does it perform well? And I don't truly get excited about just a type of driver, even though some things have interested me. The new thing that's kind of coming around is bamboo fiber. This is interesting. So the headphone that's behind me over here, the Harmonic Dyne Romantic, has bamboo. There's the Tipsy M1, I think it is M1, has a bamboo in its driver. So, that's an interesting thing. That's, a new technology, or a new, not technology, a new material. Like you have you have diamond, you have carbon, you have beryllium, you have all those other ones, for dynamics. Now you have the bamboo that's coming into play. So, some of that kind of piques the interest for a little bit. Um, that's a really good question, Kyra. Is there a standardized version of measuring audio gear with reference standards so that every audio gear could be compared to it? Um, I'm not the most well versed person for this argument, but that would be something that would be very helpful. Because there are a lot of different types of measurements, measuring rigs, and I think that it would be very helpful if there was either, you could have all the different brands, but you had set standard for them to have to meet in order to be considered reference. I think that would be a good idea. Or to have a particular measurement rig that everybody agrees on, that is, the most optimal for being considered reference. But I'm not the one to choose that, considering that graphs and measurements aren't my priority to begin with. But as Hobby Talk points out here, also, there are a lot of variables, just like everything else. And he mentions individual HRTF, or head movement, definitely plays into it. Everybody's built different. Everybody's ears are different. So that's a difficult one to be. And as I said, I'm not, the versed one to give an opinion on this. I would almost default to Hobby to be more of a reference point for this discussion. He does measurements, and he has done a whole lot more studying on this topic than I ever have. By the way, speaking of Hobby Talk, if you haven't checked out his channel yet, go head over to YouTube, check out Hobby Talk, and give him a subscription. He deserves it. And tell him I sent you. All right, so let's see. Dragnet, what's your daily driver for headphones? My daily driver is the Audeze LCD5 and the Austrian Audiophile HX60, with some others mixed in, various others. But those would be my two go-tos for now. Let's see. For IEMs, even though you asked for headphones, but I'll give you IEMs as well. That would be the Westone Mach 60. All right, so Tarja, as we get older, our hearing is no longer as acute as it once was. Therefore, the listening and reviewing becomes more subjective to a degree. So this is an interesting topic. So I do think that as a reviewer, as you get older, hence me, you do have to be aware of that. But also everybody ages differently. And some ears can be shot at a very young age. Some can last a long time. Some can be really good, or really bad, that type of thing. And you just have to be honest with yourself if you know you can't hear something. But also at the same time, you can train your ears. And this is mentioned in the How to Listen master guide that is in the chat and that I released today, talking about how you train your ears to hear things, to pick up on things, and to notice things. And that sticks with you. It's part of your experience. It's part of maturing as a listener and becoming more critical. And so you don't just automatically lose that. You're inherently, you're going to hear that. You're going to notice it. You may not notice it to the same extent that you did, prior, but it's still going to be there. And for example, the gentleman that does a lot of the sound work at our church, behind the scenes, helping getting things set up when something breaks or when we need to replace things like that. He's older, and he knows that he can only hear to about 12K. But at the same time, he's not tuning our system and tweaking it to be all treble. He knows how a system should be set up and what it should be to be balanced and even and to sound accurate. Now, I'm not saying that I never have to go in there and tweak it a little bit to my preference, but when he sets something up, I rarely ever have to adjust it. And he's older than I am significantly, and he also has limited more listening in hearing range than I do. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't know it anymore. So you do learn some things, and they stick with you with age, even though your ears may diminish a little bit. Let's see, how we talk. Head-related transfer function and headphone transfer function. Headphones can change a lot depending on the head they are on. Let's see, 5128 acoustic impedance is better, but that doesn't solve headroom transfer. So there's a lot of things that measurements don't justify or reveal, and there's a lot of things that can't be measured, because we all do have different shapes of ears. We all do have bigger heads, smaller heads, different ear shapes, things like that really correlates to that. So could you get a standardized, everybody measures on one rig? Sure. But would that correlate to the whole community in general? No. You're still going to have the same problem. Let's see, Tosh. My background is in photography and visualization. I'm treating audio similarly, but don't have much expertise in this field. Looking for a best noise canceling in-ear pair. Any recommendations? No. For me, I don't wear them, and I don't use them. So this is a personal thing, and it's a personal choice on my part. Outside of Bluetooth. Now, I don't use Bluetooth because I don't really care for Bluetooth as far as the sound representation. I'll use it sparingly on the go. I do have a couple Bluetooth headphones. Noise canceling is different. So for me, noise canceling actually makes me sick. I get vertigo, and it makes me feel nauseous and like I'm getting a very compressed feeling, like I'm in a tight room, and I get very claustrophobic type feeling. So I do not use noise canceling in that regard. As far as true wireless and Bluetooth, as mentioned, it's a personal choice. I don't prefer the sound of Bluetooth, and I don't like the way that Bluetooth fit in my ears and things like that. So it's just a personal choice. That's the reason why I don't review them very often at all on the channel. I have reviewed some Bluetooth headphones, but for the most part, it's just not my thing. Sorry. Let's see. Hobby says Apple AirPod Pro 2s are the best in-ear active noise canceling, not the 3 or the 2. Apple 3, App 3 has better ANC, but at the cost of too much treble, even for Android App 2. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so that's that's something that I've never really been involved with personally, is noise canceling and Bluetooth. Yes, Bluetooth definitely sounds way better than it used to. And is it okay for like just on the go type stuff? Yes, but it's just my choice. I'd rather deal with a wire. That's just me. All right, so Spiral says for pure active noise canceling strength, best models are Bose QC Ultras or the Apple Pro 3s. For budget conscious choice, the OnePlus Buds 4 are a great choice. Okay. Tosh, you're very welcome for the honest opinion. You're always going to get that here on the channel. I'm just going to speak it as is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to just flat out say it. So honesty is the best policy. You know, and if I don't really know a whole lot about things, hence the measurements and you know, all that, I'm going to defer to somebody else, give my opinion, but you know, I'm going to point you to Hobby Talk or somebody else. Tyre says wire is definitely better. Absolutely. You know, I have the my brain just went kaputzi. Stax edifiers. I have those S5s for wireless, and they sound better wired. I mean, I like them as wireless. It's nice to be able to just throw them on. They're extremely comfortable. But when it comes to how they perform and be better, they definitely sound better wired. Nell says that he just bought a Camper 622B Ti as a daily beater. Never even heard of it. Cool. I'm sorry, I've not heard any Camper products, or Camper, or however you say it. Mel says, go Bills. Absolutely, go Bills. And it's going to be a tough game against Denver. And going to have more Josh Allen with the Superman cape on in order for them to come out with a W this week, I think. Dragnet says that the Technics earbuds are good, and you'd recommend those. Interesting. I heard when I was at Oxpona two years ago, I heard Technics, they had a Bluetooth headphone. That was an interesting listen. Nice and clear. I didn't mind those, you know, for a portable use, but I wouldn't get them in for review or listen to them. I did not try their True Wireless, though. I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce the name, but Happy New Year to, we'll call you RG. Happy New Year to you as well. Yeah, if you're new to the channel, I'm terrible with names. So that is my struggle is names. And so I apologize if I mispronounce your name, or just be like, I just was like, I'm not even going to attempt it because I know my limits. Turja says, for IMs, do you need them to be custom formed? I can't seem to find a pair that sits well in my ears, and they get uncomfortable after a couple of hours. So for me, I prefer ones that have some ergonomics to them. Here, give me a moment. We'll show you a couple. So we'll use a pair that fits me like a glove, and that's the Kiwi Ears Astral. Okay, so they're fat, right, and they're thick, but they have ergonomics on them. They have a little wing, and I find that headphones that have that fit my ears better. They're just more comfortable, and I also prefer ones that have a little bit longer of a nozzle, like the Astral does. IEMs that do not fit me very well and that I really struggle with are IEMs that have a flat back or a stepped back. You know, the stepped ones, they'll have the nozzle and then there'll be a little lift and then there'll be another lift. Tantrum does that build quite often. And that is very, very painful for me and does not fit me very well. I find that things that have a flat back do not sit in my ear correctly. And it doesn't matter how big or how small they are. I really struggle with anything that has a smooth flat back. But if it has a wing, especially ones that are a little bit more protruded. But here's the problem is not all of those are made equal. And not all of them put the ergonomics exactly to where it should to fit my ears. And so if it fits some people properly, it might not fit others. It kind of depends how big your ear is. And I had my ears molded for a custom. And you'll notice, so this is right, this is left. And that's the mold of my ear. And that's the reason why that type of fit really works for me, is the way that it goes in my ear. And I prefer it's just more comfortable. You really just kind of have to play around with fit to learn it. Some things that can help with comfort, and I know this is going to sound really, really strange. Tips and cables. And you're like, wait a minute, how do cables affect comfort and fit? The way it comes around the ear really matters, because you have a sensitive spot on your ear right at the top here. And if your cable, the 2-pin connection, MMCX connection, or whatever type of connection, hits right there, it puts a lot of pressure on this section of your ear, and it's going to pull your shell down, or it's going to press your shell up. And that puts a lot of pressure on the ear, which then forces the nozzle angle differently into the ear hole. And I know this is very technical terms with an ear hole and this soft bit and this flexi part. Sorry, I don't know ear anatomy very well. I'm not a doctor, but I've noticed that you get a lot of pain in the jaw and up here in this part right here before it goes around the ear, if your shell is too big, too small, flat, or ergonomic. It just really matters how it fits for me. And I really struggle with fit. Cables can fix that a little bit because it'll not touch that and won't put as much pressure. It depends on the QDC, or if it's a 2-pin recessed type of pin. It really, really helps with cable. And then how thick the ear hook is and how tense the ear hook is can also affect how much it pulls on here. Believe it or not, you can have cables that push down and put pressure on your ear, or that don't hold the IEM shell correctly, and so it wobbles or moves around. Some of them will hold it so tightly that it's pressing and putting pressure on it. Ears are very, very sensitive. And so I just found that I have to really just play with it. Change a cable and change tips. Some tips go deeper in, some don't allow it to go in as far and kind of hold the earpiece out a little bit. You get a better seal with some you don't. So it kind of really depends. You just have to kind of play with it. And what you'll kind of learn through experience which ones are more comfortable. But for me, I prefer ones that are ergonomic, ones that have a little bit of a wing to them, and a little bit of curvature. Anything flat, stepped, super small, and that have really weird ear shapes, cables, ear hooks, drive me nuts. And I struggle with. And I also struggle with things that are really, really big. All right, anyways, there you go. Enough of that. All right. All right. So, Paul, how about those Hoosiers playing in the national championship game against Miami on Monday? So that's interesting. Hoosiers kind of came out of nowhere last year. Kurt Cignetti, excuse me, is an amazing coach. He's won everywhere that he's been. Um, I think the NIL has really changed NCAA football. And in the early stages of the NIL, you're starting to see teams, coaches, and their management of the teams have the ones that have figured it out, and the ones that haven't yet. And a lot of the old school coaches are really struggling with it, don't want to change, and you're starting to see those teams that were once dominant kind of struggling to compete. And then you find the ones that have these upstarts, um, and just instantly can build a championship team. And I think Indiana is one of those examples of a team that just kind of clicked and learned the NIL process really fast and how to play it. Um, I do think, since we're on the NIL, real quickly, I do think that there needs to be some regulations and some rules. And it's kind of the way like the NFL and the NBA and MLB have structured it so that there's a cap on how much can be spent and things like that. And then there's, you have to pay more. You have to, there's certain negatives that happen if you go over, or if you do certain things within it. I think that needs to happen in NIL because you're starting to see some teams with really huge budgets that can just go out and basically buy a pro team. We're getting all these, really good players. And then you have other ones that are struggling with that because their school budget's not as big, and it's just not as it's not evenly dispersed right now. And if you're going to truly integrate NIL into college football playoff and into being competitive among all of the different conferences and divisions, you're going to have regulations and rules of how it can be used, throughout. You can't be throwing millions of dollars for a star quarterback, and expect all these other schools to compete with that. That's I'm sorry, but you don't go to college to become a millionaire, while you're in college. You go to learn how to become a millionaire. It shouldn't be a money grab. And right now, it seems to be kind of a money grab. Now, with all that being said, Kurt Cignetti is a very, very good coach and very well coached. He knows his system, he knows what he expects out of his players, and he demands them to be disciplined and to think while on the field. And they make very good corrections. They make very good, changes within the game. Um, as far as their chances against Miami, Miami's a tough team. Um, Another very well coached team, by Miami. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the other games that Indiana has faced so far in the playoff. Um, and I like their chances. I think it would be really cool to be able to see a team that has been pretty much down in the dumpster of the Big Ten for years come out of the ashes and just win it all. I think that'd be pretty cool. But we'll see come Monday. All right. Let's see here. Fred, do you know of an IEM called the An Awakened Twilight? Is there an IEM that's not on the list to review that you would like to review? I'm not aware of the In Awakened Twilight. I have reviewed an In Awakened product in the past or heard one. I don't remember if I did a full. I'll have to look into that. Off the top of my head, I really can't think of anything that's on the review list, schedule that I want to review. At the moment, I don't really sit and dream about things. Now, if I was going to audio shows all the time, that might happen a little bit more. But I don't really get out to audio shows that often. Um, so there's nothing on my mind right now that I could think of that would instantly say, I want to review that. Okay. Let's see. Paul, sometimes the bullet style IEMs work better for some people. I have about 6 sets, and the right tip, they can work really well. That is another option. Bullet style, can be an option. I have heard a couple of them that are fairly decent. Um, I don't really prefer that feel. I actually like, a universal fit, but um, Yeah, you're right. That can work for some. Let's see. RG says, I have some old custom IMs, but they are very hurtful for me in about 2 hour span. That's interesting. So with my Anthem 5s, when I first got them, they were extremely comfortable. And then I, over time, my physical features changed. I gained a lot of weight and they became extremely uncomfortable. When I lost weight and my facial features, slimmed down back to what they were when I got the customs, they were more comfortable again. And I've also heard other people talk about getting customs, and if you hold your mouth a certain way and your ears and things while the mold's being made, um, sometimes that affects because you're moving and you're looking differently, smiling and doing all kinds of things when you're listening to music that they don't fit as well, and they can be painful. So customs can be a little finicky in that regard for sure. So I totally understand. Let's see, Fred. Okay. Do you have a philosophy or a method on stacking amplifiers? To me, if it can get confusing. Stacking amplifier, I'm going to need clarification on this. Are you referring to stacking, like setting things on top of each other? Or are you referring to stacking as far as having multiples in a chain, like one after another, and you use one as a preamp and one as an amplifier? Clarify that for me, and then we'll get back to that question. I need another drink. Good questions. A couple other things for you guys to think about while you're listening to me ramble. Okay, so let's see. What's one thing that you understood better about your own listening habit? What's the one thing that you wish that you understood better while you were listening to music? Um, and then just out of curiosity, is there one IM or headphone or speaker, DAC, amp, any of that you wanted to love, but no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't? Is there anything that ever stood out for you on that? Um, I've got a couple things like that. All right. So Fred, um, about the stacking amplifiers, he says multiples in a chain. So this is interesting. This is something that I don't do very often. I have done it a few times, mostly as preamp. And I'm really probably not the person to answer this question, but I'll give you how I do it. So I use Audiophile Studio. I always have Audiophile Studio maxed out. Okay, it's giving everything that it can, and I use that with USB going into a DAC. DACs, I don't mess with the volume output. I usually use it line out. Now, if they have some sort of preamp control, volume control, you'll have to mess with it a little bit. But starting with the amplifier, so DAC going into the amp, that amp going into another amp. So let's say you have a solid state amplifier going into a tube amp. You're going to have to kind of tweak your volume as you listen. I would leave your source at 100. I would take your amp at preamp, depending on your amplifier that you're using, it's going to distort, and they all distort at different areas. You just kind of have to learn where it's going to distort at. Usually it's somewhere around 75, 80%. Some are better, some are worse. I'd figure that out and then slowly move your volumes on your other amplifier. If you're doing amp to amp, I really don't know why you would do that and then plugging in a headphone. Um, for me, I connect each one individually to my DACs. Hopefully that explains things. It really comes down to when you don't hear distortion anymore, without blowing circuitry, obviously. You don't want to blow things up. Hopefully that explains it. If anybody else has experience on that and has a better explanation of how to do it, help Fred out there. But that's about the best that I can do. All right, real quick, while you guys are thinking up questions, comments, concerns, thank you for everybody who has so far donated gifts. Do greatly appreciate it. It's really appreciated. And thank you. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you guys. I have the best viewers and supporters and subscribers of any audio content creator on YouTube. And I mean that. I truly do appreciate you all. At the top of the chat, if you're interested, there's links to various things like my review process, music, terms, definitions, also a how to listen master guide. Check all that out if you have an opportunity. All right, let's see here. Dragnet. I think that a DDC with DAC makes a big difference. What do you think? What is a DDC? I'm not sure I know what that abbreviation you're leaning on, Dragnet. If you could clarify what a DDC is with DAC. I think you're referring to the power, but I want to make sure of that. I will say this while we wait for the clarification. It's really strange doing a live stream on Thursday. I'm not used to this. I keep thinking that tomorrow is Saturday because usually I do a live stream on Friday. I can't do it tomorrow because my wife has scheduled a family thing for Friday and family with friends, and then on Saturday have to do a bunch of things. Plus the bills are planned, so busy weekend. Anyways, DDC Dragnet. Are you referring to the Dragnet and Dave collaboration, or are you referring to which doesn't exist, by the way? That was a joke. Or DDC, is that some sort of reference to power, or is that something else? I want to make, before I completely answer your question, I want to know exactly what you mean by DDC. I don't know if you can hear that noise in the background, but my neighbor just took his trash out and it was like super loud. He must have something really heavy in his trash. Are you referring to DDC being direct digital control? Maybe that's what you're referring to, being the centralized networking approach. If that's the case, then very possible as well. I do think that having a direct control, direct digital controls, is very important for a DAC. No digital to digital converter. So just true straight out. I do prefer things bit perfect, and I do think bit perfect with no EQs, no DSPs, no softwares of any kind definitely do sound better. And so by using Audiophile, when I use Audiophile, I do turn all of those off. And I go straight into my deck and then straight out from the deck into an amplifier. If it's a Mytek and I'm using the Mytek Liberty DAC 2 and I'm using the headphone output of that, obviously I use that and I'm not going out to a DAC or I'm going out to an amplifier. Um, but yeah, I prefer not to have anything, no EQs, no DSPs, no PEQ, DB, none of that. When I'm reviewing product, in fact, I don't even use it really when I'm listening playback for personal use. Um, I do think it sounds better, more neutral, more accurate, more precise. Hopefully that answers your question there, Dragnet. Sorry, it took me a while. I'm sorry, Sparky. Um, Raw electricity in my ear canal. That would hurt. Um, uh, I have been shorted or shocked, I should say. I had headphones on at one point, and I was listening. In fact, I was listening to Sennheiser 660s, and the amplifier got shorted out through the electrical outlet, and I felt it in my ears, and that was not comfortable. Do not recommend that happen to any of you. And it definitely shorted out the amplifier. I had to get it replaced, and the headphone had to be replaced. So I do not recommend that. Okay, so using I2S or HDMI. The only time I use HDMI, and this is going to show, you know, you can look at it anyway. But HDMI I've used when gaming. So if I'm running my PlayStation 5 um, through a system back here is when I use HDMI. I don't use it for anything else. I don't run it out of my computer into the Mytek. I don't, even though it has that ability, I just don't test it that way. Everything's USB for me. Um, 2IS, I2S, whichever way you want to say it. 2I squared. I don't use that. I've tested it before on certain things back in the day. Did I think that sounded better? To be honest, I haven't done enough listening to sit there and compare to it. Um, I would say over the last 8 years of being on YouTube and all the listening prior, um, and even everything that I do at church with the soundboard, um, probably 90% has been USB. And I have no problems with that at all. And haven't really heard any differences. Coax I've listened with, and um, the only real difference, and it's going to be really hard to hear, is bit rate. And when you get into the bit rate argument, 24,192 is really all that you need. You're not going to get much more than that out of it, out of things. You're not going to have that significant of a difference in sound. So all right. Fred asks, do you only use Tidal as your primary music streamer? Okay, so music-wise, I do use Tidal as a streamer service. I also have Amazon HD and I have Spotify and YouTube because my wife likes YouTube. And you pay for YouTube Premium, so you get YouTube Music. I don't listen to YouTube Music very little. A few of the music that we use. At church, we play music, in between services and things like that. YouTube Music, we do stream some of the music every now and then. And at church, we also do it through Amazon. We also do it. I don't think we do it with Tidal. We do it Amazon or YouTube. Um, Spotify, I rarely ever listen to. There's just a couple podcasts that I listen to on Spotify. Don't really use that for music. Uh, but Tidal and Amazon HD are my main two streaming for music. Tidal is easier to do like playlists and stuff like that. And so that's the reason why that's on there. And I have all of the playlists that I use and recommend for like my write-ups and things like that are through Tidal. So that's on there. It's just a pain in the butt to create playlists on Amazon. And so I just haven't done it. But the majority of my listening overall is done through local files, saved files. I don't do a whole lot of streaming when I'm doing reviewing. All right, Dragnet says that he uses HDMI and DDC to his DAC. Cool. I probably should explore that a little bit more. It's not really something that I have put much thought into. Speaking of putting much thought into, so something that I've always kind of laughed at, and I did have this experience just a couple weeks ago when I redid my office. So when I was redoing all of this behind me, there something that I hadn't really ever thought about and that I always kind of laughed at was USB. So, some people claim that you can hear differences in USB cables and that USB cables make this massive big difference in sound and that power cables make a big, huge difference and all this. Now I was like, man, I was kind of skeptical. Well, I redid the office and got the new desk in and set all the gear up. Now the gear is not in the same locations as it had been. And for the last, who knows how many years, everything had pretty much been in the same spot. Like the MyTech was right here and everything was directly in front and the wires hadn't moved and everything was all situated, directly and nothing ever got touched unless a new product came in, but there was a new place for the products to always sit. And so it wasn't an issue. When this desk got set up and I put all my gear in and it got put in different spots, I started listening to music. And this was before I did videos again. And I was sitting and listening to my MyTech Liberty DAC 2 and the HPA. And I started hearing some stutters, a little bit of jittering, and these little clicks every 5-10 seconds in the song. And every time that I changed songs, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Usually when this happens, my computer needs an update or there needs to be a firmware on the MyTech or something like that. And so that was the first thing I started checking. I started checking the firmware. I started checking the updates on the computer. And I made sure that all my cables were all connected and everything seemed to be all right. And no matter how many times I reset the internet, how many times I checked for updates, rebooted the computer, did all that kind of stuff, that noise was still there. And it kept happening and kept happening and drove me nuts. And so I started to unplug wires and plug them back in. And then I even took it a step further. I started moving things. And so I moved my MyTech, connected to different USB cables, moved to the other sides of the desk. And that's when I noticed something. When I used this little USB cable that's, here, I'll get it actually. This little USB cable, and it's not long enough to reach where I was, but I pulled my MyTech closer to my laptop and plugged this little USB cable, and it's made by Viborg. The issue disappeared. But when I put other USB cables with it and moved it back into the place where it's at, the issue came about. So I took my laptop, moved it closer, plugged this cable back in, and the issue resolved itself. And so I was like, what's going on? And I learned something. USB cables don't change sound. It wasn't altering the sound, making it more bassy or making it more clear or more analytic. It wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff. It was making it more reliable. And it's because of the shielding and the insulation on it. And because of where I had positioned it, there's more interference in this spot for my Mytek. But that's where I want my Mytek to be. And so I had to buy another one of these cables, which is longer, so that I could run it. And ever since I did that, I don't have an issue. So don't disregard power cables and USB cables when people say they help, because they do make a difference. They just don't make a difference in the way that most people say. Like, you're not getting, I could not hear a difference from sound as far as presentation of the music, but I could definitely hear a difference when it came to how stable and reliable the actual information being sent from my laptop to being sent to my DAC was. So that makes a difference. So keep that in mind. And that was weird. My laptop just completely lost connection. I guess I wanted this plugged in. But anyways, yeah, they make a difference, just not in some of the ways that some reviewers and content creators claim. All right. Anyways, there you go. That's all. That was all for free. All right. Have you heard of Megan Woods? The song Truth is pretty good. Have not. I will check them out. Petra has a new album? I'll have to look that up. I hadn't realized that. Let's see. RG says, I have the IFI Valkyrie. Nice. Annihilator 2023, CP622B, Triali JP. But I only listen to YouTube music because that's where I can find covers of my favorite YouTubers. Is that a waste? If it sounds good to you and you enjoy it, use whatever streaming service you have. For me, I really don't prefer YouTube music. I did a video on this a while back where I mentioned which ones sounded a little bit differently. I do think they sound a little different. And to me, YouTube sounds somewhat compressed. It does not sound as clean and doesn't have as much clarity as some of the other services. But that's not to say YouTube's bad, because it is listenable. And so if you enjoy it and you find the artists on there and you can't find them elsewhere, why not use it? But honestly, if you can get things downloaded locally and bypass all the processing that those streaming services do, it sounds better, in my opinion. Let's see. Melvis, you heard music without stutter, and it matters. Absolutely, it does. And it's also really frustrating because you're sitting there, why am I hearing it? That's annoying. Don't do that. So yeah, I mean, cables do make a difference, and but you have to, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say it's snake oil, but there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of just claims that are made that exaggerate the results of changing a cable to make it sound like it's just massive, huge difference. It was a massive difference in that I didn't have stutter, and it sounded better because of that, but it didn't sound like it was significantly cleaner. This insanely good wide soundstage and big dynamics, all that kind of, that didn't exist because I changed the USB cable. And there are people that claim that. And in fact, there are claims out there. I don't want to mention any names, but there are claims out there that changing a USB cable, you can audibly hear the difference. I have not experienced that. All right, let's see. Elvis, my streamer and DAC are both 8 years old, spent 2K on each. Am I ready to upgrade? Thoughts? All right, so here's the thing. So just because something is old doesn't mean that it's needing to be upgraded. You know, if it performs well and you're happy with it, why not stick with it? If you have the opportunity to hear things and see what's out there, I highly recommend that you take a chance to hear it before you just jump ship. Now, if you're unhappy and you really want to move on from what you have because of various reasons, maybe the UI just doesn't work, maybe it doesn't work with your type of music, you feel it's holding something else back in your chain, maybe explore going forward. But if you're happy with it, why change? Unless you can name specific reasons why you think you need to change, I wouldn't change. If you're just having the itch of trying something new, okay. And you have the money, okay. But if you're happy, why not stay happy? Spirals. I work at a vinyl record shop and have been amazed at the differences in quality of some recordings played through a good turntable cartridge versus streaming services coming through the same speaker amps. Yes. There can be some really interesting things that you hear. Like, I think that sometimes until you actually get to hear it side by side, you might not realize the extent of differences that are noticeable depending on the service. You know, I can sit here and wax eloquently about how great one setup is versus another that I've heard on my same system without actually saying, you know, without you experiencing it, you're going to be like, is it? But then when you hear it for yourself, you can be amazed. But then other times when you hear things, the differences are so subtle and slight that it kind of amazes you and you go, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't think that they would be so close together in comparison. Now, I'm not a vinyl person. Never really have been. Not to say that I haven't heard it and that I think it sounds good and it's unique. It's just something I'm not into for many a reason. But yeah, technology's come a long ways for sure. You're very welcome, RG. And Novice, thank you very much for the reminder to tap the like button. Appreciate it. Thank you. If you are enjoying the live stream, thumbs up. If not, I understand if you have give a thumbs down. But I would like to get more thumbs ups if possible. Helps the algorithm. All right, let's see here. Spiral, I didn't realize how poor quality some of the rips are on streaming services before having the opportunity to A/B and compare. Yeah, absolutely. Some of them are really, really bad. Some of them are pretty decent. But at times when you do get to hear things side by side, and you even notice it from like going from localized file to a streaming file, how different they can sound. There's a lot of compression. There's a lot of things that variables that go into a stream that aren't in the same place as far as a rip or as the vinyls. And so, yeah, there is a lot of differences going from vinyls to FLAC, DSD, MQA, if you want to throw that in there, any of the, localized files versus going to a streaming file, you can hear differences. And that's the reason why the majority of my listening is done through localized files because they just sound better. Novice, good advice. Just wanted your opinion. Thanks so much. Sound logic, my friend. You're very welcome. And that's the way I've looked at things. So, I've had things come in for a review and do some of them outperform what I have. Yeah. But is it worth it? There hasn't been anything that said you need to upgrade. You need to change. And I really don't have an itch to change it. The MyTech is here for a reason. It sits right here as my reference, and it's been a reference for years because it's that good, and because I have faith in it and I trust it, and I'm content with it. Dragnet, yeah, thumbs up and a super chat while you hit the like button. That would be appreciated. Thank you very much for the support. Anybody who's given, I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you're also interested in supporting the channel, you can do it through YouTube memberships. Nothing really too special there. Other than you're supporting the channel, you get a couple hours worth of extra early viewing of a video when it's released. And you get some cool emojis to use in the chat that you can fiddle around with if you want. But the support would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for everybody who has given to the channel tonight. It's much appreciated. Dragnet, see you, Dave. Have a great weekend. You too. Have a great weekend, and go Bills. All right. Eric, I'm running a WIM Ultra Pro to a Jolita JD801 ARC. Would it sound better with a DAC between them? Okay, a couple things. I haven't heard of WIM, and I haven't ever heard of a Jolita. So I honestly don't know if it would sound better. I'm guessing that a Jolita JD801 is some sort of amplifier or a receiver. And WIM is a streamer, obviously. I do believe the WIM has a DAC built in. Not sure exactly what it is. A DAC may alter things a little bit, may clean things up a little bit. Kind of depends on how the WIM sounds. In that way, if you're looking for a more neutral sound or something like that, or if you want to go R2R, warm things up a little bit. But I don't have any experience with either one of those, so I honestly don't know if it would improve or not. Novice, FYI, and just so you know, my DAC is a MyTech Brooklyn OG. Still love it, but I've been interested in hearing an R2R. Okay, so you have a DAC that I truly love. The Brooklyn was on my wish list a long time ago before it became, it got moved on. I think it's now the Manhattan, I think is what it's moved on to. But the Brooklyn, I wanted one for so long. I couldn't afford one when I went with my Liberty DAC 2 or even the original Liberty. But I love the sound of the Brooklyn. It's just a step up from my Liberty just a little bit, and it would be a dream for me. I would almost say if you want to stick with MyTech, that would be a step in the right direction to go. And it is a significant jump in money, but MyTech has kept that same neutral presentation that the Brooklyn has, and very similar to what the Liberty has. And so their family is just, it's gotten better details and resolution. And it's just a little bit more clean and clarity if you stepped up in that regard. But the DAC that you have is very, very good. And I can understand why you're happy. If you go to R2R, R2R is going to add a little bit of warmth, a little bit more lushness than what you're used to with the MyTech. It's going to be a little bit more of an emotional type of presentation, and just a little bit more of an engaging sound. It won't be as technical, depending on which way you go. But it definitely would be a little bit of a flavor change. Oh, okay. So Jolita is now known as Black Ice. Okay. I've heard of Black Ice. In fact, I think I heard a Black Ice tube amp by Oxpona, but I can't really place it, but I've heard of that brand. Okay, so that makes sense. Um, with that being said, I would, you might want to consider getting a deck. Um, Going out of your whim, use your whim as your streamer, or you could get a streamer deck of some sort. It might be an option. I wouldn't. Are you doing headphones with your tube amp or speakers or both? Um, that might be something to consider as well. If you can, if you have the ability to borrow one from somebody and see how you like it, that may be more of an option to see if you like it and see how it performs. If you don't have that option, um, just keep in mind you don't have to go super expensive to get good quality, depending on what sound signature you're looking for. This just to test the waters. All right, let's see here. Eric, a Bose monitor. Bose monitor as far as headphone or speaker. I haven't heard speakers. Bose headphones, my wife uses them. They're okay. They're not something I would use personally. Let's see, still broke. Okay, we're getting speaker world, and I'm gonna just put this out there. I'm not a big speaker guy. I don't have a lot of experience, don't have a lot of knowledge in this world. So um, keep that in mind. Um, but all speaker companies tend to go for stiffness in their speakers. I find that adds listener fatigue. Is there a modern company making speakers that are fast, light, and accurate? The ones behind me, Wharfdale. Now these ones here are the D310s. They're no longer being produced, but Wharfdale makes a couple of options that are really good in that regard. There's also Martin Logan makes some really quality stuff when it, in my opinion, when it comes to speakers that aren't fatiguing. Um, one other thing to kind of one type that I noticed doesn't have quite as much of a fatiguing sound. Now this may differ for some. uh, is ribbon tweeters. I prefer. My Wharfdales do not have them, but my Martin Logans did have ribbon tweeter. And I found that those were not as fatiguing for me. Placement really affected ribbon tweeters though, and I found that they were very sensitive to that. So if I moved them in any way, um, I noticed that, and you'd have to readjust. So placement can really affect fatigue also with speakers. That's one thing I have learned quite a bit. But that's about all the knowledge that I have when it comes to speakers. I'm sorry, I'm not very well voiced in that. Eric, you're very welcome for the advice and their speakers. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So speakers can really reveal various things a little bit better at some of them, depending on what speakers you use. When it comes to DACs and amps, so that could affect. One thing you might want to try, since you have a tube amp, is changing tubes. Sometimes I can change things. You might realize I don't really need a different DAC. I just needed to find a new um, tube option. So that might be something to look at. And some tubes can be rather pricey. You might end up spending as much on a tube as you would a DAC. Just a thought. Also with speakers, as just mentioned, placement makes a big difference. Sometimes just moving a speaker an inch can make a big difference in sound. Maybe that'll cure your little itch for a different sound. Oh, just thought. Just randomly throwing things out there that come into mind. All right, so been an hour and a half. Very good conversations, and I do appreciate it. It's a great point. I was Stillberg said I was told to look into the ADS 810s for the accuracy and less fatigue. I would. One thing that I would kind of shy away from is things that are pointed that are focused more on like studio monitor presentation for speakers. Some of those can be extremely very much fatiguing in their presentation. They can be a little very cold, like sterile type of sound signature, and very cold. And so, if that's not a sound that you're looking for, that can be very hard to alter with extra things in your chain. So just keep that in mind. If that's not a sound signature you're looking for, I probably wouldn't look towards something that's directly pointed at being a studio monitor. Hey, Carmine. This is actually a guy, Carmine, that might be able to answer the question above. So, Carmine, there's a couple questions about speakers. You're pretty well voiced in this. Just pop in, long day. As for speakers, I'm rocking the Kef LS60s. That's pretty much a complete system. So he likes his Kefs. And LS60s did sound good. I heard them several times, actually, at Oxpona. Really enjoy the Kefs. But as far as some of the other questions I have come up, he may be able to give a little bit more clarity on that as well. So if you have time there, Carmine, maybe you can scroll up just a little bit into the chat and throw your 10 cents in. But welcome. Thank you for coming after a long, busy day. I'm sure probably on this weekend you've got some more of your busy life going around, as you say, listening to music and doing your other hobbies with your competitive shooting. So have fun with that. Stay warm. Being up there in Canada, I'm sure it's a little brisk for you. So, any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns regarding anything? We got we'll do about 10 more minutes here, and I appreciate everybody swinging by on a Thursday night. And I know it's a work night, and got all kinds of going. I have to keep telling myself that because I am not used to doing a live stream on Thursday. My brain keeps going, tomorrow's Saturday, because I usually do live streams Friday or Saturday. But no, I have to work in the morning. That's too funny. Competitive shooting in Canada. What is it? Rubber band shooting pencils. That's pretty funny. There are some. It is really unique. I find it very interesting over the years that I've been doing audio stuff. How many other hobbies and interests that you all have? It's like I've as I've gotten to know several of you more closely and have become online friends and buddies. And it just cracks me up, some of the stuff that we do and the interests that we each have. But the central thing that draws us back together is the love of audio and the enjoyment of music. And but yet we all have so much broad differences, and I just find that interesting. And I'm glad that we can all just kind of joke around together and enjoy each other's company and chat. Um, and yet at the same time still have a common bond. I know not everybody's a Buffalo Bills fan. Not everybody drinks coffee. Some drink tea and other things. But yeah, at the same time, we all like to sit and listen to music in some way, and I just really enjoy that. I really enjoy the camaraderie that we have in these live streams, and I appreciate everybody coming and chatting with me. And it's just fun, the jokes and the fun time that we have. I also appreciate people like Carmine and Hobby and Dragnet and things like and others that are slipping my mind at this time, but others that come in and be like, "Hey, this is the experience I have," or "This explains this," and things like that. And I really do great appreciate it. Sunday's Wild Horses right now. Rolling Stones, a cover that easily outdoes Rolling Stones. That was I liked the Stones. I thought the Stones were a an interesting listen. It wasn't always my favorite group. I didn't have this like true falling in love with Rolling Stones over the years, but I do appreciate what they brought and the different um, sound that they had. And they just had a very unique presentation, and it was a sad day this week. Um, but the Stones definitely made an impact in the musical world over what 50 years, and there's definitely a you can see the impact in the genre that they were in, and there's several groups that kind of fell into their similar mold and really did enjoy that. Yes, they were still playing, and then what's his name there? Just passed away. Um, that was a sad day. If I'm remembering correctly. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Grateful Dead. My apologies. You're right. Stones are still around. Grateful Dead. Um, it's been a long day. I apologize. Um, Dragnet. Oh, we hunt moose and bear also. Hey, there you go. All right. Yeah, I do apologize. Stones are still going. Grateful Dead was what I was referring to. I do apologize. All right. So, Carmine, LS60 bass 400 watt class D, mid range 200 watt class D, tweeter 100 watt class AB. That's per speaker. Um, have you listened to the older Bear Dynamic R1? If so, what do you think would sound similar nowadays? I haven't heard that one. Oh, you hunt buffalo also? Well, that's not good. Hopefully you don't hunt Buffalo Bill. Yeah, I do. Anyways, so um, sorry for getting my bands mixed up there and scaring everybody that the Stones were no more. Yeah, it was the Grateful Dead. But anyways, the Next couple weeks for me are going to be slightly busy. Do have a few things coming up, so I'm going to have to alter the review schedule just slightly. I'll keep you all updated on that, but we'll keep things flowing, as best as possible, and we'll get back into things more hard and heavy in February. But for a couple weeks, I'm going to have to alter things just a little bit. May have to cut a couple of live streams just because I'm going to be out of town on weekends. But we will see how that all works together. As far as getting through the review list, that's going to take a while. There's like 31 items on it now. It was 28 last week. It just keeps on growing. But it's a good thing that we have things to review. That's the way I look at it. Any other final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? If you haven't already, check out all the links up above at the top of the chat. And love to get your feedback on it and see what you all think of it. Give you all a couple moments to think up your closing questions. Have you compared any JM audio to ZMF cans? Have not. JM audio, I don't believe I've heard any of. And I haven't heard ZMF cans in a long time. It's been since I went to Oxpona 2 years ago that I've heard of ZMF. Gavin, hey everyone. Hope everyone is doing good this Friday morning. It's early morning for you guys over there in the UK, isn't it? Hope everybody's doing well. It's Friday in the UK. Anywhere else, it's probably a Thursday. Some people may still be maybe on Fridays along with you. I don't think anybody is still on Wednesday. Let's see. Keith, you're welcome. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to hear some of that stuff. Yeah, you never know, Gavin. I mean, there's, the world's big, so. And maybe somebody forgot to set their clocks ahead, or do the time change thing. I had a friend who used to, his father was based here in the US, but he worked for a company in like Taiwan or something. And he said it was flying back and forth like every 10 days or something. It would just totally mess up his clock. And your whole body is it just takes days. And so it feels like you're like 2 or 3 days behind. I could never do that. That'd be too hard. I struggle just going to the next time zone. All right, so yeah, that it's got to be so difficult. Your brain has just got to go. That would be so difficult because you have to plan your flights so that you arrive, so you can get some sleep and all of that. But yet, probably your body is so wound up, it would be difficult. Is my main setup listed somewhere? Yes, it is. So there are several things in the chat up above where it's listed in reference and things like that. On my website, there's a thing that talks about reference gear. And in most descriptions of videos, it's listed down there also. But basically, I'll just tell you right now, off the top of my head, my reference gear for the majority of things. Okay. DAC and amp, Mytek Liberty DAC 2 and the Mytek HBA, which is the headphone amplifier. Headphone wise, Audeze LCD 5 and Austrian Audio HiX 60. Also the Sennheiser HD 580 Precision and the 660 S2. IEMs, you're looking at the Westone Mach 60, the Audio Oracle Mark III, and the Soft Ears RSV Mark II. That pretty much cover the basics as far as IEMs and headphones and a DAC amp. Pretty much anything that you see behind me is considered somewhat of a testing reference sort of thing. All right, let's see here. Gavin, will you be reviewing the new Perfo? What's the Perfo? 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 Has two bass, just like the Monarch MK4 switch, I think. Oh, Performer 8. Ifu Performer 8. What hasn't been offered yet? I didn't know that they came out with a new version. If I get my hands on one, yeah, I would love to review it. Ifu has made some strides when it comes to the gear for sure, at least the ones I've heard. Dual bass dynamics with the inverted. That's an interesting way that they're doing dynamics now in the bass. Some manufacturers, and that definitely, if it's controlled properly and the crossover is correct, definitely adds body and like depth to the bass. It is an interesting concept that I think is still being kind of worked on by some manufacturers. It's interesting to see that outside of like Thea Audio, I think Kiwi Ears did it, and Moondrop may have done it. I think Moondrop did it with Blessing 3, if I remember. It's good to see some other manufacturers kind of picking up on that tendency. So be curious to see. All right, well, I am going to wrap things up for this evening. I do greatly appreciate everybody swinging by and saying hello and asking questions, listening, laughing, clarifying things, all that kind of stuff. And I do greatly appreciate all the interactions that we've had. Thank you very much for the gifts tonight. It is much appreciated. Do greatly appreciate it. And I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. I have the best viewers, best subscribers, best supporters on YouTube. And I greatly appreciate it. And I truly mean that. You guys are my world. And this channel wouldn't exist if you all weren't here. And so I do greatly appreciate everybody joining me on this Thursday evening on late notice, nonetheless. So I do greatly appreciate it. No other live stream this week, but we'll be back at it next week. And as mentioned earlier, also, schedule's going to be a little bit wonky as I work through a few things over the next couple of weekends. But we'll get it all sorted out. Reviews will still come. And if you think of anything else, any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas, impressions, positive, negative, whatever, add it down in the comments of the video, and we'll get you all taken care of. And with all that being said, at the top of the chat, there's a link to How to Listen Master Guide that I released today. It's about 100-something pages worth of just thoughts and impressions about how to listen the way that I listen, and how you can get all started up in your experience, and give it a look-see, and be curious what your feedback is on it. Also, there's other links like my review process and terms and definitions I use and all kinds of other things. So check out those links up top. And with all that being said, thanks for joining. I'll catch you on the next one. Enjoy the music. And remember, honesty is the best policy. Bye-bye. and a finger, and of course. Anyways, see y'all later. Catch ya. Bye bye.